Yo, what's good everybody? Kayanne here, back with another video. In this video, I'm gonna make a beat completely from scratch using stock plugins so anybody can follow along. This is a continuation from the beginner to master series. This is part 2. For a quick recap of last video, we went through the navigation of FL Studio and where everything is and what they mean and how important they are. With this video, I'm gonna be releasing a demo of my upcoming drum pack. It'll be in the description. It's completely free to download and you won't be disappointed. I will be using those drums in this video so you can use them when you're following along. Let's jump right into making the beat. Now that we are in FL, the first thing we're gonna do is go to the channel rack and add an instrument. Personally, when I start making a beat, I always go for something simple, like just the keys initially, and then I change the sound into something more complex. We are going to start programming the MIDI so we don't have to come back to it later. So again, right click, go to piano roll. Something I didn't talk about in the first video is what these letters and numbers actually mean. The letter corresponds to the key name. So each of these keys have their own name and it's this letter. So this key right here in the middle of the two black notes is called D. If you remember, the white key next to the two black keys is a C. So this is the C right here. The number corresponds to how high it is. So obviously if you go to 8, it'll be really high. But if you go down to D1, it'll be really low. You typically want to stay within the 5s because that's right in the middle. Now, without getting too much into music theory, basically what you want to do is click this button right over here, this drop down, go to view, go to scale highlighting. On the right side, you want to go to minor natural Aeolian, and the left side will be a bunch of different notes. You can pick any that you want, but for the purposes of this video, we're gonna pick D. Now you'll notice that the highlighted note on the piano roll is now D. So that's what I want you to see. When you press that, there'll be rows that are shaded and rows that are not shaded. Just as a rule of thumb, you want to put notes in the light rows. It is known as being in key. You don't need to worry too much about chords or anything like that. All I really want you to do is place a note and then listen and place more notes and see what goes good together with it. So we're going to put another one up here. Let's see how that sounds. That sounds pretty good. This D, let's just put another D down here, see how that sounds. Sounds kind of cool. Let's bring it down a little bit. Sounds cool. That sounds better to me. I'm thinking maybe we could do something interesting and bring this note down. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Let's cut it right here so it kind of goes down into it. So another thing that I didn't talk about in the last video is what these knobs do. This first one is called the metronome, and basically when you press it, it'll just help you keep time and it'll help you feel out the tempo of what you're playing. So now if we play it, there'll be a little clicking noise. Another thing is this is the tempo, and this is vitally important to beats. And the higher you put this tempo, the faster your beat is going to be. So if we put it at 160, you'll hear how fast it's going to be. But if we put it down to 90, it'll be much slower. Now that's really important because if you're going for like boom bap or R&B, you might want to put that down. But if you're going for more of a trap feel, you might want to put that up to 160, 170. So continuing this melody, let's see if we can fill this area up right here. That sounds pretty nice. That sounds cool. Something we can do is we can extend all of this to here so that it just lasts longer. We can also do something like this where we cut it. You use this tool right here, the slicing tool, and you can cut it right here to make notes right there. That sounds kind of cool. Now what we want to do is we want to focus on what the next chord will be, or what the next part of this will be. Again, sticking within these light rows right here. Let's just go down. Just do something like that, I guess. Right here, I guess we could put this. Let's see how that sounds. That sounds pretty good. I think we need a transition going into this part. So we'll do, maybe put one right here and then cut this right here. That sounds pretty good. What we can do is we can just press Control B and it'll copy it onto this side, and then we can manipulate it further. So maybe we want to take this out. Maybe for the bass we want it to go lower. So we'll go down here. That sounds good. I don't know about this note. Maybe down here would be better to fill up more space here. That sounds interesting. Maybe we don't need these. Maybe we'll go for something like this. That sounds cool. And then at the end part, we'll do a little flurry at the end so it transitions back to the very beginning. You know what? Maybe we could take this out. We could take this out. Hear it? That sounds pretty interesting. Let's just make it like a little cascade thing. Something I want to do is I want to bring up all the velocities. Velocity is basically the volume of it, and you control that right down here. So I probably want to bring it down to maybe about there. And now let's hear it. A little too low. Let's bring it up here. I think it's a little too slow. I'm gonna push the tempo up to 160. Okay, this will work for us. Now we want to go back to the channel rack, and now we're going to be adding the instruments that we're actually going to want to use and then copying the MIDI over. So let's press this plus. I remember back when I used to only use stock plugins, I used to use Harmor a lot. So we'll just go through this and see what we can find. I remember Moonlight EP being pretty nice. So we right click this, press copy, that'll copy the MIDI. We right click that, put it in there. Now let's hear it. Definitely need to put the velocities down a little bit more. For these transition notes, I'm going to put the volume up for them. So that you can hear them. We're going to go ahead and route this to our channel. We're going to call this keys. We're going to start adding our effects into it. Remember, we went to the mixer to do this. First thing we're going to do is we're going to take out these lows. We're going to take out maybe around that much, because we don't want that bass to come out. And basically what an EQ does is it just tames certain parts of the melody. So if we leave it open, obviously we can see there's bass in here. There's a lot of mids, no highs at all. We just want to take out the bass because we're going to put our own bass. Maybe that much is good. We don't really need to put reverb because there's already a bunch on there. But what we can do is start adding more layers on top. So we're going to go press the plus again, maybe go Harmor again. Let's open Citrus and see what it has for us. That sounds kind of cool. Okay. And then we just control beat. Yeah. That sounds cool. We're just gonna have to put the volume down on that. Something we can do, let's put this in the mixer, put it on 27, change it to bells. We can add a delay onto this to make it sound more interesting. That sounds cool. Next thing to do is add a bass. If we open up 3x oscillator and we put all of this to 0, it'll make a pretty cool sub bass. I'm gonna put this on 1. Name it bass, and I'm gonna add some things to it to make it cool. I'm gonna add a little distortion. I'm gonna add a flangus on deep chorus. And all I'm gonna do is just copy the pattern that we already have. Put the volume of it down a little. Okay, we have our pattern. The next step that I always take is I right click right here. Obviously we went back to the playlist. We put our pattern in. Now you right click the track 1, you press consolidate, you press from track start, and it'll turn it into a waveform. What I really like doing is resampling. So what I'll take it is with this knob right here, after you double click it, you could change the pitch, and maybe we could take it down 300 cents. Maybe up 5. Maybe up 2. Down 1. We can also reverse it and see how that sounds. That sounds actually pretty cool. If you click this right here, you go to make unique, then you can make different versions of it. I want this version to be reversed. I want this version to be normal. Maybe it'll go from normal to something like that. Actually, now that we're here and we're in this point right here, what we can do is if you right click pattern 1 and find first new empty, then you can add more. That's how you have multiple patterns. So in pattern 1 we have our first melody. We can go to pattern 2 and we can make a completely new melody off of this. So if you remember, pattern 1 has this one. We go to pattern 2, there's currently nothing in there, and that's what we're going to fill in. Another thing is when it comes to arrangement, obviously you can't arrange it like this if it's all in the same pattern. So if you right click pattern 1 and press split by channel, that's how you get the blocks so that you can arrange. Pretty good feature that FL has. But now that we're here, let's add another instance of armor. So this sound is pretty cool, but what I want to do with it is put reverb on it so that it's easier to hear what I hear in my head. So we're gonna go here, we're gonna put a reverb. Large hall is pretty nice. Yep, that's cool. You just move it like this. What happens if we move this up an octave? Much better. I kind of want to add more effects to this just to make it sound cooler. So we could put a flanger on here. See what we can do. That one sounds cool. Swirly. Okay, something that I need to do real quick is I need to make a better consolidation of this. So we're gonna have one part without the bass and one part with. So this part without the bass, and then the bass will come back in. Just put this like this, and we will give it the same treatment. So what I had -2 on it, bam. And then one of them was made unique and reversed. Okay, the reason I did that is because when I put 808s in here, I don't want the 808s to clash with this bass. Otherwise it's just gonna sound bad. So let's start adding some drums into this. And when doing drums, you always want to do it in another pattern. So we'll name this pattern drums. First thing I always start off, I always fill each 2-step with the hi-hats. You just want to get that to get the initial feeling of it first. Now You can keep it like this. There's nothing wrong with having just a simple two-step. Simplicity is always better most cases, but for me, I'm just going to mess around with this. And don't forget that we had changed the key. We put it 2 notes below, so when we go to scale highlighting, we need to go 2 notes up. So we are now in the key of C. So maybe if you press Alt U, you'll be able to cut it like this. Do something like this. That's a cool location. So you could switch things up a little like that. Just keep things interesting. That should be it for the hi-hat. I'll go ahead and add an 808. I like that one. When it comes to 808s, you need to right click them and press cut itself always. Otherwise, it's just gonna sound really bad. Remember, for the 808, we need to be right over here because there's no bass. If you're recording it in, if you have this turned on, you press Q. It'll always press C5. So if you wanna like play it and play your drums in like that, you can definitely do that. I have a MIDI, so I'm just going to use the MIDI. It's the exact same thing though. Before you want to do anything, you always want to press this. This will give you a 3, 2, 1 countdown. And you also want to press this record, and you want to press notes and automation. And when you press play, there will be a 3-second countdown, and then it'll start. You can play your notes. Okay, after you have your MIDI in, you can press Control Q. Something really important about 808s is that they are also an instrument. So what you need to do is you need to cut this, bring it over here, put this on pattern mode, paste it in here, and we need to remember that we brought this down too. So you hold shift and you press down, 1, 2, and what we want this to do is to follow the same notes we have in the bass. So if we have these notes down here, we want these to follow the exact same notes. Now we can press Control X, go back to drums, go to our piano roll for the drums, and push it in, paste it back in here. You could do this. So this part really doesn't have any rules. It's just whatever sounds good to you, and you don't have to do this in any particular order. This is just how I go about doing it. So the next thing I'm going to add is a clap. So I'm going to go ahead and put this clap in. Typically with claps, you pretty much are always going to put it in this exact spot right here, right in the middle of every bar. This is a little way too high. I'm going to bring it down. The next thing I'm going to add is a rim shot, and I'm going to put it in the special place. Boom, boom. Okay, that lead that I put in earlier is starting to get on my nerves, so I'm going to mess with it. We're going to put in a gross beat. Another thing is that the arrangement of how you have your effects matter. So right now the reverb is going on first, and then it's getting EQ'd and everything. What we're going to want to do is, if you hear it, it sounds really choppy because I have it like this, but the gate is also cutting that reverb. Now, if we put it before the reverb, then it's gonna get gated, and then the reverb will fill in the gap. So if you hear it now, So think about it like this. The reverb is affecting everything before it. So if you want it to reverb the flanger effects also, then you put it after. Same thing with the EQ. See, if we put the EQ all the way up here, then it's gonna cut the lows, but then the reverb might bring the lows back in a little bit. So we want to cut everything after all the other plugins. First of all, we're going to split the drums. So right click, split drums. Now we have all our drums over here. Okay, now that we have everything out here, before we start, let's at least mix it to a certain extent. We have engineered some of the sounds already. The only thing we really need to do is get all of this in here and mix the levels so that everything sits right with each other. An easy way to get it all in here is to highlight all of this, right click where you want to put it all, go to channel routing and do route channels starting from this track, and I'll put it in. The reason why I don't do it is because it takes away my colors. So that's why I don't do it. It also names it for you. So typically how I start is I mute all the drums and make sure all the melodies are sounding good with each other. Now mute the music. Now we mix them both together. But typically when it comes to the harmony between drums and melody, you want your melody to be like around 50% while your drums are the main thing that you hear. So if your drums are like at 100% volume, you want your melodies to be at around like 50 to 75. Now that we've mixed that to a certain extent, we can come over here and start arranging. So I'm going to cut it in between like this. Now I'll get rid of all of these. Let me just get rid of all of it. We'll start with the non-reversed with the bass. Maybe halfway through it, it'll reverse. That's smooth. So we'll go back to this. We'll cut this. We'll put this here so that that'll be the outro right there. Boom. What we can do is we can get our tag in if you have a tag.
This tag came?
And guys, that's how you make a beat from start to finish. We went over choosing sounds, we went over mixing, we went over processing your sounds. We also went over arrangement, as well as resampling and post-processing. Since in this video, we made the beat and the melody from scratch, in the next video, I'm going to show you guys how to find and sample things that you find online and then incorporate them into your own beats. If you like this kind of content, please be sure to like and subscribe. It keeps me motivated and keeps me wanting to pump out more videos. Again, if you have any questions, put them in the comments. That's it for now. I'll see you guys in the next video. Deuces.